What's happening, everyone? It's Peter Waitzman here, founder of Expedition Money, and I just wanted to combine a couple of my thoughts here. And it's because I've been, dialoguing, maybe you could say counseling. I don't know if that's really the right word, but there are a lot of people right now that are struggling in their job because of their relationship or maybe the lack of trust in that relationship with their boss. And I bring this up because in a couple of conversations that I've had with some coaching clients, there has been a theme, and that I have tended to work often with people that are mid career, maybe managers, directors, senior managers, maybe low level VPs, that middle management segment of the world. And in a couple of conversations here, the common thread has been that somebody is working for someone else who isn't giving them the freedom to express themselves at work. And what I mean by this is not to wear pieces of flair or something like that, or drink their coffee or customize their cubicle. That's not what I'm talking. I'm talking about being hired to do certain work and not being able to do it. And in fact, one of my things here was that one of the clients was hired, he's a software developer, and he was hired to build this credit system for this institution. And what ended up happening was they decided that they would purchase a system, acquire a company that already had a system instead of building their own, which is fine. He can do that as well. But they purchased it and then they didn't like their system that much because it was more rudimentary than they thought. And so they want to go back and build the system that they want, but they don't want him to do it because they don't want to have the expense of it. And so they're deploying him on other things and they're not using him for his skills. And as he was saying, he could probably save the company 90% of what they're spending. Some of that sunk money's gone. But if he could just go ahead and build the system that they want, he would probably be able to do it in a fraction of the time that they think, for a fraction of the money that they think. But the problem is his boss is making some decisions that are not based on trusting him. They're based on the boss trusting themselves or trusting the advice of people who have conflicts of interest, right? Trusting outside vendors and things like this. So I'm trying not to give away too many details like I normally do. But this is very similar to another conversation I had where someone is just finding themselves in a position where I think the trust isn't established, even though they've been there for years. It's not that trust shouldn't be established at this point, but some people just aren't trusting, or some people, I think, actually have a problem themselves being trustworthy. And so it's hard for them to give trust to other people, if that makes sense. For example, if I know that I'm going to stab someone in the back, I can't help but worry about other people stabbing me in the back because that's just who I am. And if I know I'm going to do it, then it's hard for me to truly believe that other people are going to do it, right? I bring that up. I've belabored the point here a little bit, only to say that what I have seen here recently is that people are struggling in their role because they aren't granted the freedom, some might say empowered, but I hate that word, but they aren't being granted the freedom, being enabled and equipped to do what they need to do for the benefit of the company in the way they want to do it, which would give them the implied trust and the freedom to express themselves professionally, to do what they were hired to do the things that they actually love, that they're passionate about. And yet that's being bottled up, it's being corralled in. Okay. And I think of this because I just recently had an experience where, my son dropped a toy in the footwell of my car. I pulled in the driveway, saw it in the footwell on the other side, and shut off the car. Everything was safe. But I reached down and it's just a little out of reach, right? I can just get my finger on the toy and I'm just hitting it with my finger, trying to get it to roll a little closer to me so that I don't have to get out and go all the way around. First world problem, I know. But as I'm tapping this toy, I'm realizing it's getting farther away from me. It's getting harder to reach. And it dawns on me that by forcing these tenuous relationships, by forcing some of the response that you want, I am inadvertently causing more distance. I'm inadvertently causing a result that is antithetical to what I want. The opposite reaction is happening. And what I realize is if instead of trying to corral the toy and draw it closer to me with this really strained and pained attempt to claw it toward me, if I actually flick the toy away from me, it bounces against the door and then comes closer to me, and now I can just grab it. So what ends up happening here is instead of just trying to keep things close, say because I don't trust you, or because I'm not sure what's going to happen, or I don't trust myself, or I am putting my needs ahead of the company's needs, or I'm putting my needs ahead of your needs, or whatever, right? You're doing all these little things that are just keeping things in a place where you can see them, but they're out of control. If you release that control, if you give trust away, if you give authority, if you give the power and the responsibility and you flick it away, you give your employee the freedom to express themselves, to do what they are hired to do, what they're trained to do, what they love, to do the discipline that they love immersing themselves in. The reality is you will get back more than you have put into it because they will go out and do a great job, perform great, create a business unit that succeeds, that brings in revenue, that hits all of the metrics that you want. Will create a product that is exactly what you want for a fraction of the cost that you had expected, whatever it is. But by allowing that to go away, it'll come back to you. Just like my toy. Just like my toy. I couldn't get it any closer to me. And in fact, it was getting further and further away. And then when I flicked it, it hit the door, came back to me. I was able to grab it. And if I had just thought, hey, instead of overthinking this, instead of thinking that I want to control this in the way I want to, if I just send it off, let it come back to me, then I get everything that I want. And what's the worst case scenario in that case? If I had misflicked, it got further away from me, what could I have done? Could have just gotten out, grabbed the toy myself, right? And I think that's the issue that some of us have when we're managing employees or bosses that aren't letting your employees just enjoy themselves. If you give them that freedom, if you give them the trust, what's the worst that's going to happen? Maybe they fail at it. Is that any worse than acquiring a company that is now sunk money, that's dead money, that got you a product for a large cost that doesn't do anything to help your business case? Is that worse than having an employee who feels bottled up, untrusted, unappreciated, dejected? Maybe now that they're going to look for another job, maybe they're going to leave your company. Is that better or is that worse? By doing some of these things and controlling the downside, I think a lot of times what we're doing is we're putting back on the table a worst case scenario of an employee leaving, someone who could have done something great for us, and now we'll go and do something great for another company. So let it go. Trust more. Give more freedom. You hire people to do a specific job, and if you need to weigh in on that, if you need to micromanage that, maybe that says something about your hiring. Maybe you shouldn't be hiring people because you don't know what you're hiring for. Maybe you're not hiring the right people. Like I said, I've got a couple of employees. I talk to them as regularly as I need to, which is to say maybe every couple of weeks. Maybe every couple of weeks we kind of touch base because I've hired them to do certain things. I trust them to do it. I see that they do it. And honestly, I don't care if it takes them 7 hours or 9 hours or 3 hours. If they're doing what I need them to do and they're doing it in a high quality way and they're producing the results that I want, what does it matter? I don't need to babysit them. I trust them. And hopefully they enjoy what they're doing because they have that autonomy, that freedom. So just my thoughts today. Instead of grasping, maybe you need to flick. Just my thoughts. I'll see you later.